Okay, so I think it's safe to say that the Twilight books are horribly anti-feminist, and I'm going to expand on that by countering an argument that Meyer said when she called her books anti-human when she was accused of anti-feminism. I will start by reading the quote from Meyer. "I am all about girl power. Look at Alice and Jane if you doubt that. I am not anti-female. I am anti-human. I wrote this story from the perspective of a female human because that's what came most naturally, as you might imagine. But if the narrator had been male, it would not have changed the events. When a human is being totally surrounded by creatures with supernatural strength, speed, senses, and various other uncanny powers, he or she is not going to be able to hold his or her own. Sorry, that's just the way it is. We can't all be slayers. Bella does pretty well, I think, all things considered. She saves Edward, after all. She's talking about the end of New Moon there. First of all, I have to say, how is anti-human better than anti-feminist? That means that she's against humans, like all people. One could imply, like, that she's against human rights or something. But I think that one of the messages of Twilight is very clear, that humans can only rise above their weaknesses by becoming something more than human. I'm going to assume from Meyer's comments and the way that the Twilight series is written is that Meyer is the type of Christian who believes that humans are unforgivably weak, and only when we die can we be cleansed of our sins, because we leave our mortal shells and we, are laying before the Lord. This message, I think, leaves people with the idea of, I can't make a difference in the world, I can't do anything significant, since in the grand scheme of things, we're all just tiny little ants in the face of God. So throughout the books, Meyer reminds you over and over again how useless and imperfect humans are. And this is better than being anti-feminist. How? It seems to me like there are so many stories nowadays that focuses on empowering human beings to make the world better, to do something significant, since we live in an age where people are all too aware of what goes outside their front door, and there are worldly problems that desperately need our attention. And Twilight just grades against that, presenting, how useless and humans are, how we're good for nothing. Great messages, Meyer. Really good. She said we can't all be slayers. I see this as a slight against Buffy the Vampire Slayer and against Joss Whedon. In the last episode of the series, Buffy and Willow changed the world by empowering girls who are potential slayers to all become slayers. Joss is saying quite clearly that all women can become slayers, of course, in a symbolic but beautiful way. I'll read the speech that Buffy made that Joss wrote, giving his message to women. Every girl who could have the power will have the power. Can stand up, will stand up. Slayers. Every one of us. Make your choice. Are you ready to be strong? I will love Joss all my life. Meyer seems to think that being physically strong and emotionally strong are one and the same, that women and people in general, I guess, can't be strong in terms of having their own opinions and being in independent control of their minds and bodies if they can't kick the asses of a dark alley full of vampires. I don't even know where to begin with how stupid that line of thinking is. I'm going to draw on examples of other female characters, too, to be exact, both written by female authors. Both the characters are young women without magical or otherworldly powers who are also in love, or like their male counterparts are people with magical and otherworldly powers. I'm going to start with Wenry Rockbell from Full Metal Alchemist, who is written by Hiromu Arakawa. Now, when I first watched the first anime series, I didn't give Wenry that much thought. I mean, I liked her and she was easy to relate to, but I didn't like her any more than any of the other characters. But I like her manga counterpart far more. She does things like deliver babies and take the shit out of Al when he needed the sense knocked into him when he thought he wasn't real. And like Ed said, she was the one who literally gave him a leg to stand on. her work is so important, making automail, giving people a chance to live their lives again and, some sense of normalcy. I mean, I can't even imagine how crippling it, is to lose a limb. And, then again, to imagine, how, good it would feel to, have then an automail arm or leg. Wenri, is also strong enough to realize that there are things far more important than her revenge against Scar, who was the one who killed her parents in the manga. So she endures, she rises above this, and she doesn't lose herself in vengeance, and she does her part for her loved ones. And her loved ones, being Ed and Al, who are going to be the ones to stop a giant massacre from happening. So her part is amazingly important. And of course, she has the feelings for Edward, and he's, an alchemist, so he's a supernatural type guy, but he respects her, and Wenri sees herself as an equal, because Wenri knows that she's making a difference, that she can make a difference. Okay, I have to pause here and say I love Arakawa and how she writes women, and any woman who wrote Riza Hawkeye automatically becomes one of my favorite people. Another female author who's apt at writing women is one of the world's most famous manga artists, Rumiko Tachihaki. For her, I'm going to be talking about Kagome Higurashi. Kagome does have Miko powers, and they do get more developed in manga, and she uses them more there too. But I'm going to be focusing on her humanness, just to point out that normal humans can make a real difference, be significant, even without magical powers. It seems to me that not many people have actually cracked the binding of the manga, but I have to say that Kagome is smarter and stronger than how the anime portrays her. But anyway, Inuyasha is the guy with the supernatural powers. He's got supernatural strength, speed, senses, and various other uncanny powers or abilities, like Meyer said. But Inuyasha is very different than Edward Cullen. For one, his author doesn't go on and on about how hot he is and use that as an excuse for his flaws. Fangirls might do that, but real writers don't. But Inuyasha starts off the story being very emotionally weak. And I like to think that he needed to protect Kagome just as much, maybe even more so, than she needed protecting, because she could have just gone back to her time and lived her life there and said, Kikyo can look for the jewel, and then after that she can be with Inuyasha and I won't stand in their way. But Kagome knew where she was needed, and that was with Inuyasha. He needed to know that there was someone who trusted him and depended on him, someone who believed in him. Before Kagome, he didn't have that with anyone, not even Kikyo. And at the end, he realized so much of his happiness is because of Kagome and how she changed him and made him a better person. Also, I think that the only reason why Sango, Miroku, and Shippo stick around at first is because of Kagome. I don't think that they would have stayed if it was Inuyasha alone, or they would have stuck around for very long. Kagome, being compassionate, caring, loving are her strengths, her greatest ones. She is strong, very strong, just not the way that we usually think of when we picture strong women. Okay, spoilers for the end of the manga of Inuyasha, even though it's been out for a year already. In the end of the manga, Kagome and Inuyasha are separated for 3 years, but they thought it could be forever. And we see them both living their lives without each other, and neither one are depressed shells of their former selves. Kagome isn't a zombie like Bella was when Edward left her, and by the way, Inuyasha didn't leave Kagome because he wanted to. It was because of forces outside of his control, so it's not like she had a reason to be, mad at Inuyasha at all. But both of them were made stronger for being together, even when they were forced apart. And that, to me, is real love, because it makes you strong, not weak. And, of course, both these texts came from Japan, an Eastern culture that stereotypically promotes the idea that women should be submissive. And I felt the need to point that out, because what's Maya's excuse for Bella? Oh yeah, that's right, that she's anti-human. Auf Wiedersehen.